With training camp officially beginning today, let's put the coaches under a microscope for the 2024 season. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _ follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button, man. Turn notifications on, leave a review where you can leave reviews if you'd like. You know that I'm just happy that you're here. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Been in sports radio in Phoenix since 2011 and hosting this lovely podcast since 2017. Thank you for being a part of this chapter going into the 8th season on Locked On Cardinals for yours truly. Talked a lot about players, training camp, new roster construction, rookies, veterans, roles, expectations, musts. Today it's about the coaches. I don't know if I've done in the last year a show solely predicated upon expectations of coaches. And it's going to be a very simple show. Nick Rallis, third segment, Drew Petzing, second segment, and head coach Jonathan Gannon in the first segment, what their expectations and musts are for the 2024 season in an effort to keep the momentum going in a positive direction for the Arizona Cardinals 2.0 organization. Diving right into it. Jonathan Gannon last year. There were people who were uneasy about the hire. I will, and I don't think I'm necessarily wrong yet, but I did a show when the Cardinals were still without a head coach and said they should hire Shane Steichen instead of Jonathan Gannon. And I think that they would have won with either. And they've definitely won with Jonathan Gannon. And what he did last year was level up everything. Urgency is a word that I use a lot when describing last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There was urgency. Like everybody was playing for their paycheck. They were playing for their job every week. And sure, second halves, when you didn't have a whole lot of NFL talent on the defensive side of the ball, the defense, the production fell off. It's bound to happen. It's human nature. You're playing against, high-powered locomotives of opposing teams' offenses that are at full strength. And the Cardinals had maybe 3 true bona fide NFL starters on the defensive side of the ball because they were white and the 2 safeties. What Jonathan Gannon has done since coming in to this role that he had never had before is be a leader, build this culture, and level up performance. Level up preparation. Get rid of all the noise. No cell phone breaks. No fruit trays. Play football. And the players love them. You can be a player's coach and still be a hard ass. You don't have to be a PE teacher. No offense, PE teacher, to be a player's coach. And Jonathan Gannon is built by everyone. And look at what's happened with him and Kyler Murray, most importantly. But going into 2024, what needs to happen when there's actual expectations? Replicate last year. 4 full games with the young talent that's been infused into the roster. On both sides of the ball. Finish games. You had your pass last year, and nobody's going to go back and be like, oh, well, look, when there's no expectations, the Cardinals are fine, and they're kind of a darling, even though they only won 4 games. And why are we giving all this credit to a head coach of a 4-win team? That's not fair. If they replicate what they did last year, this year, just in the sense of preparation and urgency and playing hard, etc., Cardinals are going to win a lot of games this year. It's hard to replicate when the expectations and spotlights are on you. It's hard to replicate when you have a defense that is still very, 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 I'll do one very young. Very. But as a head coach, as kind of the CEO head coach with, the scouting background that he has, the dog mentality that he has, you look at this roster now, we're going to find out how great Jonathan Gannon can be in 2024. I've discussed a lot on this show. You can tell when a coordinator is going to be a head coach. They're like, oh, yeah, that's a head coach. I talked with Ken Summers about this, I believe, yesterday, where it's like, you knew D'Amico Ryans was going to be a head coach. Like, you could just see it on the sidelines. He carried himself like a head coach. We didn't know about Jonathan Gannon until week 1 of the preseason last year, and it's like right away, head coach. And it's not acting. It's not false bravado. It's not hubris. It's nothing like that. It's natural. He felt natural in his position that he had never had before, taking over an organization that is filled with dysfunctionality and losing pretty much since its inception, with no real path aside from slow and steady. Kyler Murray comes back and play hard every week. And that's what they did. And if they continue to do that in 2024, Jonathan Gannon is going to get some Coach of the Year buzz. If the Cardinals win 9 games next year, he's not going to win it. But if the Cardinals can double their win total from last year to this year, it's going to be a daunting task. But they'll be prepared for it because that's what Jonathan Gannon does. He prepares. He has built this culture. And so many exciting things are ahead of them. Now, directly correlated to his success are the coordinator's successes. And directly correlated to the coordinator's successes are the head coach's successes. Drew Petzing's offense. It was the foolproof plan last year to keep the Cardinals in most games, even without Kyler Murray at quarterback. What's it going to look like this year? What does Drew Petzing need to do? What must he do in 2024 to keep the ball rolling towards Positive Town? I'm going to discuss that next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app, they actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So if you want to go to a new stadium, if you want to go to a stadium you've been at 100 times, you can go to Game Time for killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat. If you haven't heard me talk about this a million times, this is what I talk about every time I do a live read because it's so important. It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can see the vantage point from the seats before you buy them. It's like, oh, I wonder what this is going to look like. Oh, wow, those are great seats. Wow, for that price, buying. And then, lo and behold, you sit down in those seats, it's exactly the same view. That's what Game Time provides for people on their platform and on their app. It's one of the greatest entities I've ever seen out of any app, let alone a ticket purchasing app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Drew Petzing, if the Cardinals move forward from last year as a springboard into this year with Kyler Murray for a full 18 weeks, with the bye week, obviously, with Marvin Harrison Jr. now, Trey McBride going into his demon year of potentially moving into that real top 5 tight end, stratosphere. Trey McBride, James Conner, Trey Benson, an improved offensive line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The offense looked fun last year, but fun because it was boring. And sure, there were fireworks towards the tail end of the season in Chicago and then against Philly where they put up 100 points. But the metronome nature of the offense is going to be the heartbeat of this team as pertaining to winning and losing. And I said last week, the cornerback position on the defensive side of the ball is what's going to be most directly correlated to wins and losses. And the offense can help that by staying on the field more than they're not. The best defense the Cardinals are going to have in 2024 is having the offense be on the field. And they have an offense that is catered to do just that. James Conner, Trey Benson, and the other 100 running backs the Cardinals have will be heavily featured in this offense. They're going to run play action They're going to throw to Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr. They're going to run a lot of plays, but it's not going to be rushed. And that's something that Drew Petzing must do in 2024. The crux of all of it is going to be reading defenses, giving Kyler Murray the right checks, and seeing how many defensive players are in the box. Because if it's a light box, you run the ball. If you stack 8, good luck with the receivers the Cardinals have and Trey McBride on the outside and in the slot. The must for 2024 is being adaptable within the offense. Knowing how to leverage all of the talent the Cardinals have across the entirety of the offense now and maximize the weak spots of opposing defenses regardless of how good the defense they're playing is. That's going to be the nuance for 2024. That's how they expound upon last year. Sure, you're going to have Kyler Murray running amok when things break down, and it's going to be great. And I say running amok very loosely. Kyler Murray is very well under control during the gray area times, as I call them. But Drew Petzing is going to have more crayons, tools, whatever you want to use, at his disposal with the offense that the Cardinals have exponentially over last year. And it's going to be very, very important that he does a better job this year than he did last year because there's more at stake this year, 100%. There was 0 at stake last year. There's more mouths to feed this year, which doesn't mean as much. Everybody's going to eat, okay? It's like the Cardinals have 5 number 1 receivers, okay? Everybody's going to eat. And it's going to be a run-first offense. It doesn't matter that Marvin Harrison Jr. got drafted number 4 overall. It's going to be a run-first offense, and that's what it should be. Another honorable mention here is if James Conner misses time, if a wide receiver, if Trey McBride misses time, you never hope, obviously, don't wish that upon anybody. How Drew Petzing adapts, again, to the talent he has at hand available. That's going to be a big adjustment this year. He did not do it last year. There's just an actual game plan to win games this year because they've got more talent. If Drew Petzing does his job the way everybody expects him to do, especially, again, with the infusion of talent that to compound having Kyler Murray and James Conner, et cetera, and Trey McBride already, Drew Petzing's going to get head coaching looks. And I will take 2 minutes to get on my soapbox here and discuss what I do once in a while, that the Cardinals need to find a way to keep Drew Petzing. And I don't know, I brought this up with Ken Summers yesterday. If you didn't listen to that, it was 40 minutes. I broke the rules here. I didn't want to stop talking to Ken about the history, about what it's like now, the differences, etc. And I brought up to him, I'm like, you need to start to normalize what Ben Johnson did with the Lions and just pay your top flight coordinator and build momentum instead of just leaving this whole. And I know that the Cardinals have, the heir apparent on the coaching staff already to take over. Drew Petzing does, in fact, move on. But I have a very strong feeling, and it's not because I'm too close to it, not homerism by any stretch. Anybody, every day, as you know, that's the furthest thing that I am. I like to treat you like adults, is what I say. Drew Petzing and this offense with this talent could be wildly special. And it's not just because they can put up a lot of points. It's in how many ways they're able to put up points. It'll be fascinating to see what they do with 4th down this year. Drew Petzing was very 5-minute drive. You get to the 38, 4th and 3, kick a field goal. Get to the 33, 4th and 2, kick a field goal. I'm sure they went for it some, but it wasn't going for it on every 4th and inside 5 yards like it was with the last regime. It'll be very interesting to see with that wrinkle, with the amount of weapons that they have, the amount of 6'2" and up receivers and tight ends. They can just be like, okay, run 3 yards, turn around, put your hands up in the air, and Kyler Murray throws the ball where a 5'10" corner can't get to. That's one of the things that I'm really, really fascinated about this year because possessions are so important. The defense is going to be inferior to the offense naturally as they're a year behind, 18 months probably, maybe 2 years, but we'll see what happens with the rookies and Kazir White and Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. We'll see. Pass rush, all of it. We'll see this year. Do you put your defense in a bad spot by going for it on 4th down more, or do you leverage the powerful side of the ball that you have with offense and use that momentum and use that skill level to help the defense even more by extending drives on 4th and short in field goal range? It'll just be interesting to see. It's just an interesting wrinkle, and we're going to find out after the first couple weeks. They have a really, really tough schedule early on. Buffalo, Rams, Detroit to start. Then they have Washington. But, I mean, they've got Green Bay. They got the Chargers early. Like, they've got teams that are difficult to play. And it'll be very interesting to see what Drew Petzing's offense looks like with this skill position group, with this, the skill they have now. How many chances he takes because of all the talent they have now. Or if it's just going to be run the rock, play action, adjust at the line when you see how many defensive players are in the box, and you're off to the races. It could be offense on easy button, or as close to it as an NFL offense can be. It'll be fascinating to see in 2024 with Drew Petzing calling the shots. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. Nick Rallis has a tougher job. What's that going to look like? What are the expectations with such a young defense? That's next. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, man. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive, and eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to you as customers. So I'm really excited to see what Nick Rallis has in 2024. Yeah, he's got Jonathan Gannon with him on the defensive side of the ball, which will help. It's kind of a mystery what the defense is going to bring. It's kind of a mystery what the defense has and the players they can count on off the jump. And with camp starting today, there's a 20 minutes of open practice. I know that camp's important, obviously. It's the start of everything. You usually don't get a lot out of camp unless, you're looking for rookies. You're looking for Marvin Harrison Jr. to make a ridiculous catch. You're looking for Kyler Murray zipping the ball, but you don't learn a whole lot except for bad things. Like if an offensive lineman is way over his head, or if a wide receiver drops 4 or 5 passes, or if a quarterback throws 5 or 6 interceptions, whatever it is. That's the stuff you just want to avoid. That's the minesweeper stuff. The old game minesweeper. I don't know. I'm old. I do what I can. But with Nick Rallis, Monty Ossenford did him and Jonathan Gannon a massive favor. He drafted the guys that would fit this scheme and the skill set they're looking for the best. Darius Robinson can play inside, can play outside. He's going to be a good complement to B.J. Ojulari. He's going to get help from Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones. Max Melton and Elijah Jones, 2 corners who are great against the run. Well, they're playing cornerback, so obviously with the pass too. The point is, when I bring up that they're great against a run, is they like to hit people. The Cardinals haven't had a lot of that from the cornerback position. Like Dre Kirkpatrick liked to hit people. Who else? Patrick Peterson didn't. Byron Murphy didn't. Marco Wilson did. The Cardinals haven't had powerful hitters from the cornerback position in quite some time. And Garrett Williams coming back for his second year, and Sean Murphy Bunting there for veteran leadership. Solomon Thomas is there. They didn't have any true NFL corners on the roster last year. And then with Nick Rallis, how can you anchor Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson over the top to be able to be the anchor for this team? The musts for Nick Rallis is, at worst, replicating the urgency from last year, which will happen. It's a mindset thing. It happened right away. It happened week 1 in Washington. Okay? It was different. But now, the big thing, well, there's two. The pass rush needs to maximize the talent that they have because they don't have a lot proven. DJ Ojulari could be a double-digit sack guy this year. Darius Robinson, we don't know. We know he's big. We know he played interior, then he played off the edge in Missouri last year. So he's flexible. He's versatile on the line. But we don't know if Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones are going to be guys that are better than rotational. We don't know if Dante Stills can jump in and really be that guy on the interior. We don't know yet because we haven't seen it. LJ Collier is going to be a guy that I discussed. He's sneaky young. I think he's 26. He looked great in camp and in the preseason, and then he got hurt. Him coming back is a kind of a sneaky, low risk, potentially high reward deal. But the pass rush needs to maximize. And I am surprised that they haven't added another piece at this point. Maybe they will. But like I was hoping for Bud Dupree. He went to the Chargers, I believe. They need to add some warm bodies that have played in the NFL before in somewhat of a high level. And they don't have it. I mean, this isn't a Cam Thomas thing. Myjai Sanders isn't with the team anymore. Zaven Collins, like maybe they think Zaven Collins, they figured it out with him. We'll see in camp. But the pass rush is severely lacking talent-wise compared to the counterparts across the NFL landscape. And then the cornerback room. And they're tied hand in hand. Pass rush makes the cornerback job easier. The cornerback is, it's the toughest position in football, in my opinion. Having to cover for 3-4 seconds without any sort of pressure, and you're having, as I call quarterbacks, having tea parties in the backfield, it's difficult to produce. The Cardinals didn't have a sack for over half of the end of the last season. It's unacceptable. That's something that Nick Rallis must do if the Cardinals want to continue to take a step forward. And sure, it's going to be a little bit more difficult with the talent they have, and it's a must. We're going to find out a lot about Nick Rallis in 2024. We found out a lot about Drew Petzing last year. Nick Rallis had a pass. He did. He had a pass. We're going to find out what he's made of. Him and Jonathan Gannon calling the defense that they love, that they know like the back of their hand. Because you're white with the heartbeat in the middle of the field will help with that. But that's the big thing for Nick Rallis, elevating the talent that they have because now there's expectations. The Cardinals can't score 28 and give up 30 a game. If you see midway through the season that the Cardinals are dead last in total yards given up or total points average or whatever it is, they may win 5 games. So it's something that is so important, and there are expectations, but more in a proof of concept way like it was for Drew Petzing last year because we were used to Cliff Kingsbury's offense, the 4 years before that. The expectations we have for Drew Petzing last year are the expectations that you have for Nick Rallis this year. With all the money they have to spend going into the 2025 season, I'm sure the majority of that will be spent on the defensive line, pass rush, and cornerbacks, depending on how the rookies do. We'll see. And Rabbit, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, we'll see if he can jump in and be a guy out of Texas Tech. He was looked at as a steal. Like, there's a lot of what ifs. Or how ready will these young players be? And it's Nick Rallis' job to shorten that curve. Jonathan Gannon, replicate last year and expound upon it. Drew Petzing, understand the adjustments necessary on the fly to make, depending on opposing teams' defenses, and really crack the code on what your fourth down thought process is going to be going into the season. You don't want to leave an undermanned defense out to dry, but you also have the ability to put them in an even better position if you're able to convert more times than not on 4th and short. It'll be fascinating to see. And then Nick Rallis, proof of concept under a microscope in 2024 with a very, very young defense. He's a young coordinator. They're going to be able to commiserate on that. And they're going to have Jonathan Gannon too. I mean, this is the defense that Nick Rallis knows like the back of his hand. This is a defense that Jonathan Gannon runs. That's why camp's so important for the young guys, especially on defense, to try to shorten that learning curve as much as possible to be ready for week one and make an impact in week one. So we're not looking at week 8 like, oh no, this defense is terrible. And we'll find out. All three, you have to have, well, you don't have to do anything. I have immense belief and trust in, we saw it last year. You can't fake that. And now with expectations at play, we'll see if they'll be able to replicate and expound upon everything they did last year. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.